Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, everyone. Hello. Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's fine and going well. Not panicking. And this is another edition of the show that talks about radio and more radio and only radio. We just check if everything's all right. And everything seems to be okay. So, what else do we have? Things are okay here. Things are okay here. And let's start. Put this a little bigger for my old man eyes. And welcome aboard, everybody. So, this is the live shortwave show. This is a show about radio. This is a show where we talk about everything radio, basically. And we are tonight going to answer a few questions about receivers, a few questions about the MLE 30 Plus versus MLE 30, and go back in time and listen and talk about older shortwave stations that have left a long time ago. So if you are in the mood for going back in time when you were younger and feel like you're going to want to be nostalgic a little bit, well, I think today is gonna be the day when this is gonna happen. So hope that you guys enjoy the show. So this show is a show that is twice a week, and we are here on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 0 UTC. We're here on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 20 UTC. This is the place where we talk about all sorts of things radio, answer questions, and just have fun among radio friends and radio geeks. We have a beautiful chat room here when we're live, which is a lot of fun. All you need is a Gmail account. And there's a Facebook group that goes with this. So when we're over here, what happens is everybody might feel empty inside, not having anyone to share with. Well, the Facebook group is there to actually help you feel, among friends and feel that you're not alone throughout the week when we are not live. It's a great group. It has the same name as the channel here, official SWL channel. We're not very far away from 600 members, which is pretty good considering that, it's been running for 2 months, something like that, which is really nice. So we're almost at 600. Let's cross our fingers that within the next week, we might actually cross the 600 member barrier on that group. I do realize that a lot of people don't like Facebook, but I don't care personally. There's you can create a profile that has a couple of white lies here and there, so that it's not too personal, and you don't have to give your life on Facebook. You can give just a strict minimum, and the rest, who cares? So, anyways, there's there's a lot that we're going to talk about today, and I decided today to go back in time a little bit. I like to go back in time from time to time to, talk about the shortwave stations of our past, as well, of course, as tuning the bands and trying to listen to stuff from our future, or at least from now. Of course, you might notice that the radio waves are full of the same news wherever the country you're listening to, whatever station you're listening to, there's some kind of virus. I don't know. Apparently, something that is around. I don't know. I haven't listened to the news much. And of course, that is dominating a lot on the radio waves everywhere. I mean, the AM band scan I did the other night. Wow, it's like every station just talks about that. It's either you had sports and that. And now that sports are like postponed, well, they'll be just that. So, anyways, this is a show to take your mind off of all of that and, talk radio. Just talk radio, and that's it. Instead of buying, a full carload of, toilet paper, buy a carload of radios. How about it? That'll be the good use. At least you'll know what's happening. So welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Gilles, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. That's the northeast part of North America. And this show, of course, has been going on. Somebody asked me the other day, how long have you been doing this? The live shows, I started somewhere in 2013, something like that. It's like October 2013. So incredible how time flies, actually. It seems just like yesterday when I was in my kitchen with the that was my first show. Well, my first few shows in the kitchen were near the the dryer with the ICOM ICRD 500 and 100 feet of wire in the backyard, and that was the setup. And I was using the laptop camera that was super crappy to do the live show. Now I've got a dedicated camera, which is the Logitech C920. And it's just, you look at that and you're like, well, we advance in time, we advance in technologies, microphone now to have better sound, and there's tons of things that are going to change in a couple of months from now, with even more technology coming in to be even more professional. So this is kind of cool. And one of the questions I get asked very often is how long I've been listening to Shortwave. And, we're going back in time today. And, well, how long I've been listening, like I say, the story is pretty much I don't remember the exact year when my dad purchased the first multi-band radio. I remember it was a multi-band radio. I remember it had that little opening. You could open the top and there was a world map. And it had VHF. I remember listening to the Police there. It had the air band. I remember amazing my friends, next door neighbors, that were they would all think that these radios cannot get airplanes, that it's impossible. And I still remember my next door neighbor that couldn't believe it and said, no, it's impossible. And I tuned the airport frequency and heard, like Air Canada 246. He said, geez, you're really listening to airplanes. Yeah. These things do get those frequencies and they listen to the signals. And I remember being very intrigued by markings that would say SW1, SW2. And thinking, what is SW1? What is SW2? What exactly are those things? And didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was shortwave. I had no knowledge. And I don't even remember if that radio had a book. I don't remember reading an instruction manual to that multi-band at the time. And so I didn't really know that much about what all of this was. And here we have a visitor, Mr. Paul, saying hello to everybody. So, I didn't know what that was. And I tuned around. I remember hearing Morse code and weird sounds. That radio must not have been that great because when I think about it today, I remember when I actually, got the DX100, realistic DX100, listening to a lot of broadcasts. But when I got that multiband, I heard the BBC once, but I didn't know it was the BBC. And I don't know. It's I don't seem to recall hearing a lot of stations. I would guess that radio might have been very crappy on shortwave, which meant that I didn't really listen or hear anything related to shortwave back then, except those weird noises that I would get here and there. And then a couple of years later, I go to the Radio Shack store and I see on the shelf the DX Realistic DX 100. And I thought it looked cool. It was 100, I think it was 129 or 149. And I thought, well, that's what I want. I want that radio. And I started saving my money from, like putting out the garbage and doing some cleaning stuff. And I put away a little bit of money every week and, being patient and waiting anxiously for, the time that I'll have enough. And we got into the month of August. And, Radio Shack, you guys that have been at Radio Shack, we all know, and we all did that probably, is when we would see a radio or something that we're interested in, we'd all wait because we knew that at some point it's going to go on sale. And that's where we would buy the stuff that, I bought so many things on sale because I didn't want to pay for the price they asked for. And I think the DX100 was $149, if I'm not mistaken. And I go to the Radio Shack store to look at the radio again, thinking that one day I'll have one. Hey, it's $99. It's on sale. And at that point, I got maybe $50, So I'm like, man, it's on sale and I don't have enough money, But my dad had a raise that week and he was super happy. And he knew that I'd be going at the Radio Shack to look at that radio, and I would show him the radio in the catalog so many times. And what do you know? He came home for lunch because he would always come home for lunch at noon. And he had his paycheck, and he said, "How much money is? How much do you need to have the money for the radio?" And I said, "Well, I got around $55. And he said, "So you're missing out on about $50, a little more, the taxes." I said, "Yeah." So he looked at me and he gave me the money and said, "Go get a radio." And I remember being 13. Remember, I never, ever, ever had $115 in my pocket. $100. I never had that. It was like, wow. It almost felt like I could be kidnapped or something. And I went to the Radio Shack store, got the radio. I remember coming home with a box, being super happy. And that's where I'm here. That thing opened up the world of shortwave, and I was hooked, and it was a great time for that. In the 80s, listening to shortwave was amazing. Like probably any of you that listened through in the 50s or 60s or 70s. There are so many things out there. And I mean, there are so many signals. It was just crazy. And, you would have a crappy radio. And honestly, when I compare the realistic DX100 today to what we have, even a cheap Texan PL380, man, that radio is crap. That radio is definitely crap. And so, it's just the fact that there were so many stations that I was able to pull in so many stations. The problem back then was not noise. The problem back then was having a radio good enough to separate all the stations that were packed 5 kilohertz from each other. I remember getting mad because I would try to tune my favorite, I remember like Radio RSA in South Africa, and having a hard time tuning it because 5 kilohertz up and 5 kilohertz down, there are two stations. So it was squeezed in between there. And the realistic DX100 didn't have much of filtering. So the stations would really, really interfere a lot with the reception. So back then, the problem was with too many stations, jam packed together, rather than noise. Noise was not a problem back then. I remember the first ever noise problem I had. My next door neighbor downstairs had purchased a big 26-inch, because keep in mind that in 1984, if you've got a 26-inch TV, you got a big TV. Okay, it's not like today. Today you got a 50-inch, and it's like, oh well, hey, I got a 50-inch. I find it small in my living room. Back then, 26-inch was huge. Not a lot of people had 26-inch. The standard was like 20-inch. Everybody had a 20-inch. It was kind of that standard. And I remember they got that Sony TV, and I remember seeing the guys bring it to their apartment. But you never been faced with noise ever. You've never been faced with the fact that there's something that could be noisy, creating interference to your hobby. I didn't have that back then. So we wouldn't think about it. The only thing you knew is, when they would use, like my mom would use the mixer for a cake and stuff like that. That couple of minutes that she used it, there was that noise on the radio. I was like, oh, look at that. It generates noise, And so there was that random car passing by that would have like that ignition noise on the radio, but it just passed by. So it's like, it lasted 10 seconds and it was over. But noise was not a problem. Static crashes in the summertime was, that was pretty much it. And I remember they turned on the TV, because at one point I didn't know what it was. There was some kind of a buzzing. It wasn't very strong, but it was there. And it was strong enough that on some of the weak signals, it made that station impossible to listen to. First time ever I was confronted with RFI, radio frequency interference. And at first I didn't know what it was. It's when I noticed that when they shut down the TV to go to sleep at night, my buzzing would go away. So at one point I made the link. I was like, oh, their Sony TV might be doing the buzzing. Okay. And it was the TV, because it had that distinct, anybody that ever heard the oscillator buzzing of a TV, you understand it's a TV by the type of buzzing that it does. And suddenly I had to cope with, there's noise when they listen to the TV. So I'm happy when at night they're not home. I'm a little pissed off when they're there. But at least, especially in the summertime, and even in the wintertime, I always was a guy. I would go to school. I would go to bed at like midnight, 1 a.m., even when I went to school. And, every night around 11 p.m., they'd shut down everything because they would go to bed. And starting at 11 p.m., I was okay. But it was only on the weak signals that was a problem. All this strong stations, there's no problem. The buzzing wasn't that loud. It was when I wanted to listen to, say, Radio Australia. That was really creating a real problem for me, because I would tune in like 17795, and the signal wasn't super strong. It was good enough to listen to the programming, but the buzzing was just strong enough to drive me crazy. And it was kind of worse on some of those frequencies, higher frequencies like 16-meter band. First time I had encountered RFI, a Sony TV. And after that, I moved. And where we moved, because it was very complicated when I was young. And I ended up moving in 1989 ish, 1990. And we moved in kind of, it was kind of urgent. We had to move now. It's like, you got to find an apartment and move today. It was really really urgent. So I picked up the local newspaper and look at the classified ads for an apartment. And 3 or 4 streets away, there was an apartment available. And I went to visit. And an hour later, I was signing the lease. And the next day, I was gone. I was in the apartment. And what was interesting is that that place was super quiet. I was back to quiet conditions. I was back to listening to pretty much everything 16-meter band. I remember going to bed listening to all the African stations in the 60-meter band, which was really cool. And going to bed with Radio Nationale Tchadienne 4904.5. I'll always remember the frequency. Back then, I had upgraded to a Kenwood R5000. So I had a big gun radio. And, I should have asked, but everywhere I moved, I always moved to a place and put up antennas without asking permission, or I would put up the antennas in a way that it was difficult to see that I put something up. I always waited for the landlord to be away. And when I knew they were away, I would, climb the telephone pole and stick a wire on it. And I'd have, I don't know, back then I had maybe 60, 70 feet of wire in the backyard, very thin. Nobody noticed. I never got any questions asked. And then I moved here. Here I moved here in 2000. Here was a whole different story. For the first time, I was face to face with tons of noise. Probably today, if I had that same pattern, and today would be, I'm finding an apartment, maybe I would have investigated a little more if there's a lot of noise around the apartment. And then again, do you really choose your apartment based on noise? You kind of choose it more on, well, the rent's okay, and it's a nice place to live, more than noise. But I don't know. Would I've moved here known that there's tons of noise like that? Maybe I would still have moved anyways. I just wanted to get out of that other place where the ceiling was leaking all the time. I remember one day coming home from work, and there were a lot of thunderstorms on that day. And the ceiling was leaking, and it was leaking about barely a foot away from my Kenwood R5000. Imagine, guys, if I'd come home and it would have leaked on the Kenwood. Man, I would not have been a happy guy, I can tell you that. And here has been the struggle of noise. And in over 20 years now that I lived here, well, the noise has steadily increased. The noise that I have now is not the noise that I had 20 years ago. 20 years ago was not like this. It was noisy, but manageable. And I still remember being able to kind of listen to some of the stations still, even though it was a much bigger challenge. And the backyard wire was okay, noisy, but okay. And, but as the years go by here, noise is just increasing all the time. Now I've got an MLA30 and a loop antenna, which helps me kind of dish out a little more signals out of that noise. but it's still really noisy. So that's the little story I wanted to kind of talk about today. Okay. Chat room. Mark Hope, nice to have you here from soggy Dallas, Texas. Here it's super windy, and so windy that I've been actually checking my antennas all day. We had like 80-kilometer-per-hour winds all day, and it was raining like crazy until about 1 p.m., and now the sun's out. It's a really weird temperature. Matt from Denver, Colorado, nice to have you here. Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL from Louisiana, USA. Juan Amigo from Barcelona, Spain. ¿Cómo está, mi amigo? The Vaults from Latvia. Nice to have you here. Andy Coley. Nice to have you on board. Scott Cranston from kind of creepy Massachusetts, USA. I think it's kind of creepy everywhere right now. Kadarius. Nice to have you on board. Kevin Wood. Nice to have you here from Nova Scotia. Liam Conlon. Nice to have you here from Ireland. Jojo Cunanan, nice to have you here, Jojo. KM6EHD. Christy Freitas, hey, my friend. Welcome aboard from Fort Myers, Florida. And we're having a pretty good day here. Pretty good day. Giuseppe, his new R8600 arrives today. Woohoo! Nothing like a new radio, and especially a radio like that. I think I know what you're going to do this weekend, Giuseppe. Mitch, nice to have you on board. Sheldon Harvey, bonjour, hi, hola, niao. Nice to have you here from Greenfield Park, Quebec. Yes, it's Friday the 13th. Liam Conlon says, if you use a PL660, check out RadioNet's buyer beware. Some of the keys will not work. Lots of other issues. I took it apart. I know of dozens and dozens of people that purchased the PL660 and have absolutely no problem. And I have had almost no problem with Texan receivers. So maybe it's mostly is because when they do a production of receivers, they might there could be some of them that have problems, and I think that's every type of radio. But I've not had any. I would say any, like when I talk about the Grundig S450 DLX, now that is a problematic radio, and I see it everywhere. The PL660 is really quiet on people having problems in general. So maybe it's just the one that he got that is like that. But because, you got to be careful online, because you can't take one person's opinion on something. You got to look general. When I go on heham.net and look at the reviews, I look at dozens and dozens of what people are saying, because there's always that guy that had that bad experience with it, or that guy that doesn't know how to use it, because it's totally possible that one of them or some of them had problems, But in general, the PL660s, I like to call it the background noise. What people are saying, if it's good or bad, is not worse than any other radio that I've seen. René Charbonnier, nice to have you here, my friend, from the Netherlands. Dave Todd from Niagara, nice to have you here. Crittenden Tuttle 4, nice to have you here. PLF Radio, bonjour et bienvenue de la France, toujours un plaisir. J'espère que ça va bien. Mark Rich, nice to have you here from rainy England, as always. MRL, nice to have you on board from Spain. Andy Coley, nice to have you here. Indy Packrat, nice to have you on board, my friend. Let's go down and try to catch up. That's the price I pay for having Paul the Cat for a few minutes. Rob from Phoenix, Arizona. Douglas, nice to have you here. Douglas Elliott from the UK. Larry, nice to have you on board from Georgia. Thank God it's Friday. Don Warner, nice to have you here from Ohio. Crittenden Total 4, dude, I love my RSPDX. I have a bunch of new leg dongles if anyone is interested. I was pretty sure that you would actually just, not want to use them anymore suddenly. RSPDX is amazing. Brent in Brockville, Ontario, Canada. Kevin Wood, dear leader, is speaking. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. You know what, Brian? Paul the cat was sleeping on that scratch mat all afternoon. He cuddled into a little round in the middle, did cuddled in there and slept all afternoon in it. It was like, wow, okay, kind of loves it. I guess he does love it. D1 DJK, nice to have you here from Germany. Jeff Williams from Southwest Cornwall, UK. Joseph, nice to have you here from North Carolina. And he says, glad to have shortwave in these times. Absolutely. And it's a nice hobby for people being quarantined. Donald Hosmer. Greetings, W8SWL, Northern Michigan. And same here. There were hundreds waiting at the Costco to buy toilet paper. I still don't get it. Jeff King, nice to have you here from Jacksonville, Florida. Vince Perrault, salut, bienvenue, mon ami. Vaults, anyone getting dropped frames? Scott Creston, no meat, tuna, bread, milk, pasta in the supermarkets here. Wow, crazy. Really crazy. Radioactive, nice to have you on board from Prineville, Oregon. CN94NH, Grid Square. It's pretty much everywhere, I think. Tom DXer, nice to have you here from Hudson Valley, New York. Morrison AV, nice to have you on board. Oh, yes, I did get it, Morrison. I wanted to reply to it this morning and totally forgot. I'm sorry, man. I'll be okay. Thanks for the offer, but I'll be okay because with the RSPDX that has its own 3 antenna inputs and all of that, I think I'm okay with the switch. Honestly, I think I'm going to be okay. I know that maybe we don't have enough antenna switches, but I think it's going to be okay. Crittenden says, what does the wrench icon next to people's name indicate? They are moderators. So that means they can kick out anybody that is unwanted or undesirable. Okay, I'm going to use another word. Somebody we hate. Man. Woodbeast Productions, nice to have you here, my friend. What else do we have? Man. Woodbeast Productions, nice to have you here, my friend. What else do we have? Is that AliExpress sells the Texan PL990 for $399 US, which I find way too expensive. No news of the H501. So, and you got to be careful because make sure you don't get the original Texan PL909 because they have an updated firmware version of it. Just want to say hello to Elizabeth by email, by the way. Elizabeth in Regina, Saskatchewan, saying hello to everybody. And she says she's happy to be listening to the show. So cool. Really cool. We have Ecadarius been enjoying his CC Pocket. Only for that shortwave. Yeah, we have these radios sometimes, eh? Kevin J. Napalo, nice to have you here from New Jersey. WS2H. Radio Havana was talking about C-19 and precautions for Russian tourists. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. D1DJK, due to I have time and do not go out. Got some nice catches on shortwave this week. Cool. That's fun. Keegan, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Esteban, nice to have you here from the Canary Islands. Always cool to have all of you here. What else do we have? The only JK in Germany, all schools are closed from Monday on for 3 weeks. Here, the schools are closed for 2 weeks, starting today. So we'll see. And we have a interdiction. We're not allowed to have any gatherings of more than 250 people indoors. So pretty much everything is, no sports, no nothing. Everything is kind of canceled here. So they're really taking a lot of precautions. What else do we have? Everybody's saying hello to Mr. Paul. Christy says, "Oh my God, His Royal Highness has arrived." Nicodarius says, "Paul is the real star of the live streams." Oh, man. Yes, usually when the DX cat appears, it means propagation will be perfect through the weekend. Brady, KJ7GFT. New ICOM IC705 will be great for shortwave listening. Being able to see where a signal is at will be perfect for field operation. Cool. Chrissy says, "Paul the cat is a hero we need and deserve in those dark times." Absolutely. So, Joe Rodman, nice to have you here from the Chicago area. Catalan, nice to have you on board, my friend. Slovene, nice to have you on board. And yeah, I think we got to be careful, but not go into that panic. Kadarius did a review yesterday on the Radio Shack Portavision 50. Yeah, I saw the picture. Kind of nice to see these old radios and stuff. Really nice. Rob remembers Radio Shack glory days. Yeah, most of it do. Samuel Peterson, nice to have you here. Chuck CP Davis, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Chrissy finally remembers my dad buying me a shortwave radio from Radio Shack back in the late 90s. The SX397. Kind of cool. These are always really nice memories. The DX397. Yeah, I thought it was a DX, but yeah. Wood Beast, great story show. Those are cool. What else do we have? Keegan is listening with his dad, a W9JEF ICOM IC7300 transceiver and the W6LVP loop. Catalan upgraded his MLA30 by replacing the silver wire with an aluminum flat bar, 30 millimeter wide and 3 millimeter thick. Have you seen the improvement? Mitch says, "Great story, getting your first radio. Thanks for sharing." Yeah, we always have some newbies here that don't know the story because, some of you out there are like, probably were saying like, "Oh God, he's going to tell that story again for the 70th time or something." Understand the times. Nice to have you here, Tom. KC8KSK in South Carolina on his way home from work. Stay safe. E1DJK, something positive. I got 25 meters, 11600 TWR Africa from Swaziland, 8,864 kilometers on his S350DL and telescopic. Cool. Chris C pretty much got into shortwave right before the turn of the century and pretty much heard a lot and then the decline. Up to early 2000-ish. It wasn't too bad. Up to about early 2000, there's still quite a lot of stuff out there. It's really after maybe 2003, 4, 5 that things declined kind of fast for a while. PLF Radio bought his first shortwave in 2010, 10 years ago. Yeah, I know Liam, but he opened one PL660. And I've seen a lot of them open on other groups. I got no problem. I understand what you're saying, Liam. That he could have one that is, And I'm always careful also with a lot of stuff because even on shortwave and radio sites and YouTube stuff, there's a lot of haters. I noticed one thing over time. There's a lot of haters of Chinese shortwave radios, and it's like, come on, just live with the times. We got radios from China now. That's it. Even the one that you think, like Sea Crane has been in China. It's a Chinese radio. I'm sorry, it just says Sea Crane on it. That's all. D1DJK says another cool reception. 17 UT 11590 radio free Asia and Chinese. Oh wow, that's cool. Samuel Peterson's first shortwave radio, the SW60, which I have. No, the shortwave 60 is the one I have here, right? Shortwave 60. I got a CB60 and the because there was the DX60 also. It's very weird. It's easy to get mixed up, but they were all very similar. But I got the shortwave 60 and the CB60 here. Sluvian says, yeah, the woodpecker was damn annoying too. I had a woodpecker popping up everywhere. The Russian jamming on so many frequencies. We would hear those harsh white noises with the Morse code ID in it. And I'm sure here there must be something. Shortwave jammer 80s. Let's check it out here. There must be one of those must be one of those shortwave jammers from back then with Morse code ID. I'm going to put Russian jammer shortwave Morse code. Let me check it out here if there's something. I remember seeing a video on YouTube at one point that had it. But it was crazy. I mean, they had it was kind of a white noise that they would broadcast. And it pretty much stopped when the Cold War stopped. When the Berlin Wall was tore down in 89, that's pretty much when all of it stopped suddenly. It was crazy. But there were like tons of frequencies being jammed all the time. They spent billions of dollars with high-powered transmitters to jam everything. It was crazy. Matt says there was a blackout in the middle of the night here on the radio. While I loved the low noise level, there still weren't a lot of broadcast stations. That's sad. D1DJK, his first Sirius radio, running Yardboy 100. HL. Yes, SDR play. Absolument. SDR play. Actually, I have two SDR plays here. I've got a SDR play RSPDX right now. That's what I have here. And I have a unused for now, RSP1A. So this is the SDR play RSP1A with its antenna connector and USB port on the other side. I plan to connect it to another computer and have it using it at some point. But for now, it's the RSPDX that was given to me by SDR Play. And they're actually watching my videos, because when I talk about something and I'm say something that's not right, or don't say something, or when I talk about it, they there's always an email that follows and say, hey, yesterday you had that video, you talked about something. I just want to tell you that, it's not exactly right. This is blah, 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 So they're looking at what I have to say, and actually, John from SDR Play was telling me how he found it really cool that I'm very enthusiastic about their products. I still think that if you have to start with an SDR, the SDR Play devices are really the best out there right now for price versus performance. I'm not saying they're the best in the world. There are better SDRs at higher price, but if you have an RSP1A, which is kind of the entry level for the SDR Play, you got an amazing SDR for the price, and you're starting off real well already. What else do we have? Rufus, nice to have you here from Laurentian Valley, Ontario. Jean-Marc Letz, nice to have you on board. Bonjour de Strasbourg en France. And says silly elections allowed next Sunday, but soccer league games suspended. Pretty much every sport here is suspended now. Zach Arianto, nice to have you here, Zach. Rick Elford, nice to have you on board, my friend. So, bienvenue, HL. And as Matt says, I wanted to talk about it a little bit this weekend from 13 UT, actually today to 13 UT Sunday. Special event station, Victor India 3, Romeo Alpha is operating from the Shepparton Radio Australia transmitter site. So they should be active now. And so look at the different DX clusters. So this is a special operation from the Shepparton Australia transmitter site. Ralph Bender, nice to have you here. Kathleen, can I use my Sony Vaio for SDR stuff? Is it too noisy? I have no idea about the noisiness of Sony computers. Maybe I'm just lucky, but my Toshibas were very quiet. Unfortunately, Toshiba is out of the market. My Acer Nitro 5 is very quiet, which looks very nice. But I have no idea on how noisy the Sony Vaios are. I don't know if anybody's using an SDR on the Sony Vaio computer. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here. Dave Todd, first radio, ICOM R70 in about 87. Sold it when a good deal came on the R71A. I was spoiled. First portable XH Data D808 this year. Cool. What else do we have? Tom DXer used to hear Chad all the time on my FRG 7700. Yeah, good old days when all the African stations, Yeah, the frequencies for the special event station is amateur bands, so 40, 30, 20, 17, and 15 meters, which goes to 7, 10, 14, 18, and 21 megahertz. To check it out. D1 DJK says, I do other things instead of watching sports next week. I have a car to clean, a shortwave hobby, and such other things to do. I think with all the hobby here is we just have so much to do anyways. So, PLF Radio says, Joe, the noise you have today is because of new technology. Yep, somewhat that, but it was already much noisier here in 2000. So even in 2000 here, this location was noisier than any place I'd lived before. So the one DJK says, seems some vids about a new PL990. Yeah, what would be interesting to note is the new PL990 YouTube videos on the new revised firmware and hardware, or the original 300 that they sold in China. So, Martin, nice to have you on board from Russia. Vaults, well, let's just say moving right now is out of the question. Maybe someday I'm not, I don't think, I don't, we never know in life. I don't think, it's not in my plans to move right now. Personally, I don't think I'll be here for the rest of my life, but you never know. I mean, I was looking at the old lady that lived next door. When she moved from here last year, she was 94. She arrived here in 1952. And I mean, she had been my next door neighbor for 19 years, and she moved because at some point when you're 94, you get to a point where I gotta take a decision because she wasn't as well and everything, and I was talking to her. I remember actually she lived here longer than she wanted at the end because I would help her with everything. So when something was wrong, I was always there. And if she wanted, and she didn't feel so well, she wanted some groceries, I would go and get the groceries for her. So she was, she's still here longer because of me, obviously. But when we were talking, she's like, when I got here in 1952, I got here for a few years, and I'm 94 years old, and this is my last place really before a old folks home. Actually, she didn't. I think she went and lived with her daughter up in Laval. But these are things that you don't know. I mean, right now, except for the noise level, rent and the place and location here is actually quite nice. And if I move away from here, I would think that it would probably possibly moving away to buy something somewhere. Jason McIntyre from Birmingham, UK. Neil Toombs, M0CJM from Basingstoke, England, playing with FT8 on 20 meters. Cool. So, what else do we have? Shitty Pyro 90. Nice to have you here. Lee Burkett. Nice to have you on board, Lee. Found a Matsui WR208 receiver. Medium wave works fine, but only some shortwave. Today I bought a Audioline Time Track RTT1 receiver. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see all of that. Post pictures. Show us how they work. So nice, kind of nice. What else do we have? One of the things that's going to happen a lot is I think we're going to have some delays on a lot of the production of receivers from China with the virus and how bad it affected their economy. And a lot of production lines, are kind of on and off. I think we're gonna see some delays in some of the stuff we were waiting for. And if they do release some of the new radios, it might not be at first the full production that they want to actually have. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen with that. So nice to have you here, Martin from Russia. Gaëtan Bellil, bonjour de Sainte-Sophie, bienvenue. C'est un plaisir de t'avoir parmi nous, Gaëtan. Esteban says, close to mount my first QRP CW Mars kit. Cool. For those that wonder what QRP is a subset of what amateur radio hobby is. And it's basically low-powered So there's a lot of amateur radio operators that love to use low power and show the world that, with a couple of watts, you can actually talk around the world. Red Hat Shortwave, nice to have you on board. Jason, J. Watterson 69, sounds like you need a Degen DE31 MS. Oh, yeah, for sure. DRAF. What else do we have? Says email contact with thanks buyer on eBay was not aware of MLA 30 plus, but confirmed he had them after I sent a screenshot from your video. He confirmed he will ship a plus to me. So cool. I mean, just ask the seller. Just ask the seller and get the MLA 30 plus. I think they just get the MLA 30s, and nobody noticed that at some point it said MLA 30 plus. I mean, it's not super easy to see. They are all alike. The box is very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. And the antenna itself, apart from that little plus, you don't notice that there was a change at all. And so I'm pretty sure that a lot of sellers might be actually sending out the MLA 30 plus, and they just never noticed that there was that new version of it, for sure. And one of the things that I wanted to answer on the MLA 30 plus is, by the way, I'm 25 minutes behind, guys, so be patient. I'm answering a question from 4:29 p.m. 20:29 UT, but I'll try to get down as fast as possible. Somebody said, is it just possible that he just turned up the gain? It is. Honestly, it is. It's not impossible that they could have just turned up the gain. But they took the time to redo the sticker to say 0.5 to 30 instead of 0.1. The voltage has changed from 4 to 14. The MLA 30 plus is 5 to 12 volts. I think they did more than just tweak the gain. They modified the low noise amplifier inside it. And it's funny because somebody on the channel today was posted as a comment. Why is it that what you're listening to long wave and it says 0.5? It's impossible. These are just numbers. They're ratings. They're saying it performs best in that range. It doesn't shut off at 500 kilohertz and say, hey, it doesn't work anymore. It's not like that. It's different. And actually, it performs better than the original MLA 30 that is rated at 100 kilohertz and up. Jawahar Bami, nice to have you here from Westford, Massachusetts. Rebel Foxy, nice to have you on board. And what else do we have? You've taken up playing electric guitar. Cool. Have fun. Yeah, shortwave and ham radio is a great way to just, keep our mind away from whatever else is happening. Simon Templar, nice to have you here. Ralph Bender, nice to have you on board. Leonardo Lopez, nice to have you here. Where are you located? Sidvik, nice to have you on board from Gander, Newfoundland. Everybody saying hello to Elizabeth. Nice to have you here. Rohan, nice to have you on board. And, like we were saying, Rohan, shortwave and amateur radio is a great way to just move away from all of the news. Cameron Mills, nice to have you here, my friend. Toby Allen, nice to have you on board. Rohan is from India. Nice to have you here. Ehab, nice to have you here from Brussels and Belgium. Pretty cool. I think the virus has an effect on pretty much the sales of everything, for sure. What else do we have? Pedro, nice to have you on board from Portugal. PLF Radio, do you like your Seacrane Skywave SSB? I love it. If it was not for the audio that's a little tinny and all, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be my radio. We're talking about go-to radio, or radio that you bring with you all the time, everywhere. It's gonna be my go-to radio this summer. I'll be probably bringing that CC Skywave SSB with me everywhere I go. It's very nice, very, very happy. I still, for price versus performance, I still will tell people that the XH Data D808 is the good choice. But if you can shed a few more dollars, you'll be happy with the Seacrane, and it does perform better on the airband than the others. And the earbuds are really nice, and it has weather alert, which is also very cool. Kamal, problem with the Radio R108 with the battery. I've seen a few people mentioning that the battery seems to be used on the R108, even when it's not in use. But in my unit, it doesn't seem to be the case. Look, I'm going to go and get it. I haven't used my R108 Radio Wow in at least 2 weeks. And so I haven't used it in 2 weeks. Let's check out the state of the battery here. So, well, you know what? I haven't used it in 2 weeks, and the battery's low. So I don't know. Maybe. Do I have? Yeah, this is the original Radio Wow battery. So maybe it does. Maybe I. You know what? It's like the Texan PL 365. I didn't notice that it was using the battery even when shut off somewhat, because I was using it so much that I would not see the draining. So I used the Radio Wow so much, I didn't see the draining, but I did see a couple of people like you mentioning that. So it's been on the shelf for about 2 weeks, and the battery indicator is flashing, actually. So it's possible that it drains the battery even when shut off. That'll be something to mention, actually. So, and that's why I got another battery also, because I purchased another battery, a Nokia battery, because these are batteries from Nokia phones, basically. So, yeah, it's possible that it does. Rodolfo 65, nice to have you here from New York City. And Scott Cranston says shortwave broadcasting declined once broadcasting the internet became widely available. It doesn't correlate, actually, Scott. I've talked about this quite a lot. It doesn't correlate at all. They didn't, because like I was saying, if all shortwave broadcasters would have moved to online broadcasting, I would have said, yeah, that's basically it. It's not the case. 80% of all shortwave broadcasters just left. They never had an online presence. I think it's easy to put that to put 1 and 1 equals 2. Oh, the internet killed, but I'm still one of those that don't believe that. Actually, internet helped the hobby tremendously, including what we have here. It's more of a question of if you want to slash something and save millions of dollars, well, where do you go? Oh, look at that shortwave broadcasting. That's not useful anymore. Who cares? And I think it's more that than anything else that has killed shortwave. The fact that, shortwave, there was actually a very nice, I was reading an article that talked about shortwave, the use of shortwave. And I totally agree with that side of things, that shortwave was needed for Cold War purposes. That's where everybody wanted to have their voice in the Cold War era. And when the Cold War ended, a lot of that, there was like a rethink. Why are we now broadcasting to the world? Do we need to spend those millions of dollars in broadcasting on shortwave now, or not? And I think that is more the reason why, than the internet itself. And people weren't just listening, at some point. Rebel Foxy wants an old bolt anchor ham transceiver. Just be careful not to fall in the ocean with it. Jason McIntyre says, my Texans are fantastic. Never had any problems. The great Chinese radios. Yeah, for the most part, most of them are amazingly good. Absolutely. Red Hat Shortwave picked up Sanjin WR11 sometime back after looking at the guts. I found that it could be modified for shortwave use. Oh, interesting. That would be nice. Dear Forestry, nice to have you here. Let's have a video saying buy shortwave radios, not toilet paper. Niruddin Mazari, bonjour et bienvenue. Niruddin Mazari. Désolé si je ne prononce pas parfaitement votre nom. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Brady KJ7GFT says, how warm does your main SDR receiver get when it's on for long periods of time? I would think that it can get pretty hot to the touch. The SDR play is cold. If I touch my SDR play, the RSPDX right here, it's pretty much room temperature. It does not warm up. The SDR play devices run really, really cool. What comes really hot is things like this. This runs super hot on VHF, UHF, and warm to hot on HF. But it's almost, it comes hot enough that in the summertime, I would say, it probably is all difficult to touch because it really runs hot. But the SDR play devices are devices that don't run hot at all. They stay super cool. I mean, they don't even have vents. They could like the little box could have vents for the heat to get out and everything. They don't even have that. The RSPDX and RSP1A are run really cool. Reference says 15770 on the FRG 7700. Let's check it out here. 15770. Oh yes, with Brother Stare. Andy Coley says, with great fun in German, when the wall came down, still got a piece. We have a part of the wall here, downtown Montreal, where we can actually see. Glenn Zeckman, nice to have you here, Glenn, from Tennessee. E1 DJK likes your C-Crane, likes the C-Crane in Europe. It's none of the rest until 2100. Yeah, I believe they're same radio. Very nice. I'm very, very impressed, and I love the radio. Love this radio. Karina's back. Nice to have you here. No problem missing the Wednesday show. We can't always be there. You know what, Catalan? It's coming. From what I hear, version 2 of the SDR Uno software will have a Windows, Linux, and Mac version. So version 2 will have multiple platform. So this is going to be nice because you will be able to run it easily on different platforms. CJ, nice to have you here. Made some progress on that regenerative receiver until I installed a capacitor in the wrong area and damaged while removing it. So, sorry to hear that. Transgamer, I'm in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. WF7I Homebrew, nice to have you here. Yes, best place to avoid the virus is here. Hope you're better, Glenn. Sorry to hear that you were in the hospital. What else do we have? CamXZ 1976, nice to have you on board. People no longer have an excuse to get into shortwave radio. Et voila. Let's bring shortwave back thanks to all of what's happening now. Matt's going to miss the La Liga and Champions League matches on REE. And they are actually modifying their schedule. Radio Exterior de España, I saw it on, I think it was the World of Radio, Glenn Hauser's World of Radio group. Radio Exterior de España is going to change its schedule. It's going to be on the air less hours because of the virus and the fact that they don't have, because, they broadcast a lot of those matches on the air. So now that they don't have any to do, they actually will lower the amount of hours. Dear Forestry, I gave a PL660 with rechargeable batteries and a solar USB charger to a friend. Finally asked after this. Took 5 years. Oh, man. What else do we have? Let's go down. Let's go down. Trying to keep up. Cyberflyer 1, nice to have you here. Sure, Sheldon Harvey, finally found some info on the first shortwave radio I was using back in the late 60s into 70s. It was made in Poland in 1966. Stertone Model 200 Radio Unitra. Wow. So here's the link. Oh, wow. That is so cool. Oh, man. These are radios that are just so cool. Scott Cranston, yeah, well, I always help. I help everybody here. Now that all the women in the building have my number because I'm the official police of the place. But I've always been like that. I've always helped all the neighbors. I'm that kind of person, actually. I told downstairs is an old woman, and I see her coming with her very heavy, grocery bags in there. I told her every day, when you have heavy bags, why don't you just ring my doorbell? I'm going to go and pick them up and bring it to your apartment. I mean, she has to go step by step because it's too heavy, Man. Mark Rich says, my first radio was the Seisho 2000X. And a couple of years later, the Seisho SW5000. Wow. Pretty crazy. Kathleen says, I have seen one of the videos comparing the St. G and C Crane and XH Data radios. Who is the winner, by the way? XH Data and C Crane? Well, if it's a very complicated issue and depending on what you want to do. I'm just going to go down the list. And Kathleen, if I haven't answered or forgot to answer your question in the next 15 minutes, ask it again, okay? I'm just going to try to catch up a little bit with the chat room before I can start ranting about something or talking about something. JF Nixon, what is the silver radio behind you on your left? It looks like my Radio Shack DX402. Silver radio. You mean that one here? That's a Texan PL600. The first one of the first Texan receivers I've ever purchased. It's long wave, medium wave, FM, shortwave, general coverage with single sideband. One of the first. It's not the first Texan I've purchased, but it's the first higher end, let's call it like that, with digital display Texan. I was curious and wanted to see how it performed. Kevin Wood says QRP is less than 5 watts. Cool. Dear Forestry, I wish Baofeng would produce a shortwave as good and as cheap as the 2-meter rigs. PLF Radio. My MLA30 No Plus has a green LED. I bought it at the end of December. Well, Sheldon Harvey also has the one with the green LED. So maybe they, but it doesn't say plus on it. So I don't know what to think. Could it be and plus? Okay, they're after me now. Could it be a plus without that plus written on it? I don't know. It'd be interesting to compare that. Because the Sheldon also has the same one with a green LED. My 2 original MLA30s have the white LED, which is kind of interesting. So that means, you know what? They do changes to that antenna. They upgrade it and they change stuff from time to time. Cyberflyer1 says, I took chance and purchased the XH Data D808. Very surprised how good it is. Thanks for your reviews. It is amazing. The XH Data D808 is truly amazing receiver. Dana from Providence, Rhode Island. Nice to have you here. So, yeah, well, that's what I want to do at some point. I'm going to wait until the more beautiful weather, and I will actually open both boxes and take pictures and talk about it, see the difference, if we can see a difference. Take care, Keegan. Kimberly, K6YYL in California. Nice to have you here. Larry Stevens from Newark, Ohio. Nice to have you here. Dear Forestry, my hobby used to be about buying the best radio and antenna. Now it's about logging frequencies. William Powell, why do I have so many portables? For many reasons. Because I like radios. It's like anything. It's fun to have, when you like something, it's fun to have different radios. It's fun to test them out. They each have their own positive, negative stuff. It's really cool. So for me, and there will be more to come. I mean, these aren't the last radios I purchased. There will be more in the future. I'd like to, and it's kind of a radio collection at the same time. Plus, now I have to, because this channel is dedicated to shortwave, and you guys love seeing my reviews, And one of the things that I do is, of course, talk about them. And a lot of people buy some of the radios that I actually talk about simply because I talk, positive about them. So it's just that. We all have our passion and our hobby, and that's one of my passions. It's my hobby. I listen a lot, and I love tuning around with different radios. It's kind of cool. See the design also. See how they, the radio itself and the buttons and the way they designed it and how it performs. It's kind of cool. Icewall 2011, nice to have you on board from Russia. Madam Bale, nice to have you on board from Colorado. VK2FBAJ Brian, nice to have you on board from Sydney, Australia. And stay healthy, stay home, and listen to shortwave. Et voila, that's what we will do. Man. Lee Burkett says, time track receiver auto syncs the time when you switch the receiver on and off. Oh, interesting. Cool. Let's go down. And don't forget, you got to wash your radios also. By the way, if I miss out on anybody, say hi again. Matt, UK. XH did a really good radio. Absolutely. And there's all that question of quality and will it last over time? And that's the first thing when I got my PL600, which is here, I paid something like 80 Canadian dollars back when the Canadian dollar was at par with the US dollar. I paid something like 80 Canadian dollars, 85. And it was the first time that I purchased a PLL synthesized receiver at that low price. Everything else that I purchased that had, were a PLL analog shortwave radio, I'd paid more than that. So of course there was that feel of, how does that Texan, perform and will it last? Or am I buying something that 2 years after is going to be bad or whatever? I mean, I've owned it for, I don't know. I lost track of when. I would need to go to my eBay back years and see when I purchased it. But I've got it for at least 6-7 years. I would say 6-7 years easily, and maybe even more. And it still works perfectly. So RFDXer from snowy southeast Colorado. Cool. Dear Forestry says loves his SDR Play RSPDX. Very close to performance of his Drake. Drake is a little bit more sensitive, but not by much. It's like when I compare it to my ICOM ICRD 500. I mean, it's a $2,000 radio. I see a little something more, but not enough for me to use the 8500 instead of the RSP. And the fact that we have the waterfall and all the commodities of an SDR, I mean, it's just cool. G Bone 1, nice to have you here, my friend. What else do we have? Shady Pyro 90, are there any pros or cons on the AN48X active loop antenna? I've been thinking of getting it. Shitty Pyro 90, if you are thinking of buying an antenna, buy the MLA30 instead of that, and you will immediately have a great antenna. The AN48X, I've been using it off and on for the past few weeks. I do use it. Okay, so it's not all bad. But on shortwave, it's really hit and miss and very difficult to tune. Personally, I wouldn't purchase it. I got it for testing purpose. I wanted to talk about it here. Long wave, medium wave, it performs well on those bands. But on shortwave, half of the shortwave frequencies, it makes things worse. Where it does make it better, yeah, but you got to find that little sweet spot when tuning because you need to tune. Here I have FM overloading because of strong FM stations. It overloads. I do have FM breakthrough in the amplifier, and I've got to keep the amplifier almost at minimum all the time for it to work well. So for the price that it's sold, I would not purchase one. And anybody out there that's thinking, oh, for my shortwave radio, I want to buy maybe buy that Texan AN48X, I would immediately say, put that $10 extra and buy the MLA30, which will be so much better than an antenna. No tuning to be done. You just plug it. That's it. What else do we have? Ingmar Klenhart, nice to have you on board. Loves his CC Skywave SSB. The battery on the R108 is the only real negative of the RadioWow. Well, pretty much. I love my RadioWow R108, honestly. So, Red Hat Shortwave, I keep one of those RadioWow R108s in my backpack. It goes with me everywhere. I sometimes use it as an air monitor, confidence monitor, occasionally. Battery seems to last a few months. I don't know. Or is it possible that it's the battery itself that drains? That's also something. Because okay, well, let's do a test, and we'll do another test and see if it's the radio. So I haven't used it in a couple of weeks, and the battery's dead. I've got a spare battery that was charged a month ago. I haven't used it. Let's check if the battery's good. So, battery. It's a Nokia battery. It's the same. It's just that it's not RadioWow name on it, but it's the same battery. So I haven't used it in a couple of weeks. Battery's dead. I charged this about a month ago. Is it good? Let's check it out. So I remove the battery. Let's put the radio in this one in. And yeah, it's the radio because it actually works now. So, and it's full scale on the battery. So either it's the battery of the radio out that he give that is bad, or it's the radio that is actually. I'm going to leave the battery in and not use it for the next few weeks. And I'll come back at you with that. $94.20. Usually it's Voice of Greece. And technically should be Voice of Greece. Absolutely, RFDXer. Discerning what is true. Where are you located? False. It's possible that with the increased censorship, like in Russia, the shorter broadcast might pick up again. It's not impossible. A lot of countries, so of course, a lot of countries did dismantle their, transmitter sites after they closed down, like Canada. But there are quite a few countries that actually shut down shortwave, but the transmitters, antennas, everything's still there intact. As if somebody somewhere said, let's save money by stopping our broadcasts, but let's keep stuff there just in case we need it someday. Madrid DXer, nice to have you here. One example of Cold War ending interest in shortwave is maybe Radio Berlin International. No longer a voice for the East and West divide, as unity was achieved already. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot to be said with the different people on the east and the west side of Germany today, still with the differences. Yeah, it's definitely Voice of Greece. Dear Forestry says, love is Radio R108. Took it with me to work today. FM is sensitive enough to have undaunted use within the Faraday cage. So what else do we have? Tom the Xer got his AirSpy HF Plus discovery in the mail yesterday. Cool. Tell us what you think. Matambale, so the RTL SDR plus a portable 5-volt USB power source would make a great hand warmer in the winter. Yes. You could put them in their mittens and you keep warm. Continental Hub. What else do we have? Yes, it is very good. It's a little muffled in the audio, but even that, it's small speaker, and they did a better job with the audio on the R108 than the C Crane did on CC Skywave SSB. But it's pretty interesting. David Bennett. Yeah, they're at 25. For VHF, UHF, they're not bad, the RTL SDRs, but for shortwave, avoid them. They're no good. Pierre Radio, did you show what you can receive on your SP devices on VHF, UHF? I can't remember. On the VHF, UHF channel, I have several videos of receiving ham satellites in orbit on 2 meters and on UHF, also 70 centimeters. Random Obvious, nice to have you on board. I got no time. I have to take the time to get my license. It's very, very. I'm like, I've got too many things going together. It's in that list. It's in my bucket list. Nice to have you here. Olympic 65. Repeat the recommendation for good enough model. SDR play. I'll post it in the chat room here. SDR play. RSP1A. Anybody that never had an SDR, okay, and that wants to have something that is decent, works well, not very expensive, around 110, 120 bucks US. The SDR Play RSP1A is really, really good. You can buy it from HRO, Ham Radio Outlet. Nice to have you here from Cleveland, and you'll have a lot of fun with this. It performs well out of the box. It's easy to set up also. You don't have to, put that weird driver in. It's super complicated and everything. You just plug it in, you install the SDR Uno software, and you got a great working radio. Matt, Behavior 9 on WBCQ, fairly good signal, 7490 in Denver. Cool. Discerning what is true says use a Alpha Delta Ultra DX antenna, 25 feet in the air, inverted V, 80 feet wide. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. PLF Radio, yes, at the end of the month, we are changing the shortwave schedules on Sunday, March the 29th is when the new shortwave schedules are in effect. So in a little more than 2 weeks from now, we are going to be on the A20 schedule season for shortwave. Absolutely. Mark Cope, Cuban Lady on 11635. Discerning what is true, I gotta say I was disappointed in the W6 LVP after I got the MLA30, for sure. Magic can ring my bell. In CD Video, nice to have you on board from Windsor. Any word for the new Texan radios? So AliExpress sells the Texan PL990 at $399 US. Actually, I went to the Canadian version of the site, and it's 543 Canadian dollars. A little more now, probably, because the Canadian dollar lost a couple of cents. But I mean, 540 Canadian dollars for that, nope. I'm sorry. I just can't. I just can't. What else do we have? René Charbonnier, my first radio was the Amor TR-105. The E1 DJK is in love with his S350DL. Oh, man. Dave Todd has his SDR2 Pro since August 2017. Never have I bought anything that has as many options for online support. Matt has a green LED. Rufus has the green LED. Kind of interesting. No, we don't have any clues of who's making it. That's the funniest part, you know? It'd be interesting to see one day that, it would be Texan or something, but I don't think so. If Texan would make those, we would have a Texan. We would not have the Texan AN48X. We'd have the Texan MLA30 version. It seems to be, and that's probably what's happening. Dear Forestry says his LED is white. So here I've got two, and one is white, one is green. The MLA30 Plus is green. The original is white. Yeah, Kathleen, probably. It's like, hey, we're running out of white LEDs. Get the green ones. They're in the box over there. Maybe some of them will be red at some point. It's like, oh, no more green LEDs. We got a box of red. Take the red ones. But check not just that. If you've got the MLA30 from Amazon, Crittenden Total 4, check if it says MLA30 Plus on the box. So Dave Todd says his MLA30 Non-Plus has a green LED since November. So there was kind of a mix of green and white LEDs. Red Hat Shortwave. Oftentimes, Chinese stuff seems to get passes between different manufacturing facilities. Yeah, that's possible. One thing I did notice, because of all the tests that I did notice that using the RSP's bias T gave inferior performance on my MLA30. It seemed to be noisier and not as sensitive. So I plugged back the little bias T box that came with it. Oh, the stand, PLF radio. Yeah, the radio stand. It was it's somebody, one of my fans, and I think he lives in Florida, that 3D printed the radio stand with my name, the YouTube channel name on it. I want to use it a lot when I test radios. And Ricardo Silva, nice to have you here from Portugal. Shortwave is a good companion in virus times. Absolutely. What else do we have? Does it say plus, Crittenden? Because mine says really plus, MLA30 plus. Calvin 29, nice to have you here, my friend. Yeah, RCI. Some people, because China radio is CRI, but sometimes people say RCI. What else do we have? What else do we have? Matt says, I saw someone on the RZR play group who said he doesn't use a waterfall and wants a knob to tune. I really wonder why someone like that buys an SDR. Yeah. I mean, you get yourself a radio. If you don't like, if you don't, because there's a subset of people that don't like SDRs, and it's fine. And we can't all love the same thing. It's fine. I'm not shoving SDRs in your face. And by the way, I'm not, because I'm talking about all sorts of different radios, portables of all kinds, and so on. And by the way, for a couple of fans out there that says, be fun to see a couple of videos from your ICOM ICRD 500. Yes, I will. I'll plug it in and back in correctly and do some videos, a few videos with it for sure. But if you like a knob, I don't use the waterfall. I mean, come on. No use for SDR at all if you don't like a waterfall. If there's one thing that turns you on to SDR, it's the waterfall. I mean, that sounds more like a comment from a troll than a real comment from somebody that's serious, honestly. So it's like, yeah, there is a knob thing you can buy for the SDR play if you want to but you got to want the waterfall too. And, I mean, come on. PLF Radio, did you try your AM200 antenna with your new portable radios? No, not yet. Man, I need to do so many videos of different things. I need to take the time to sit down and do them for sure. Yesterday, you guys saw the video where I'm talking about, another video that I posted a video of tests coming up, and I posted a picture of Paul the Cat in the middle of the radios. So, I wanted to do a lot of videos last night. And then Paul the Cat comes up, sits in, puts himself in the middle of the radios, like, okay, I'm going to pet him and everything. And so he goes away. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm going to start serious. Doorbell rings. A friend of mine is there. It's like, okay, seriously, no videos tonight. Yeah, no waterfall with an SDR device would be weird. Absolutely. You know what, MD? I know that we should listen, because with what's happening, and there is a side to what's happening right now. If you are listening to HF, one of the things that you should check out is the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management, whatever, in the United States. They have and use a lot of HF frequencies for communications. It's time to tune around those frequencies in between the international and the amateur bands. I'm pretty sure there must be an increase in HF communications. Civil Air Patrol and all of that is also, everything is like, everybody's probably on some form of alert. And I think that all of that is to check out. So FEMA has several frequencies. I would need to check it out here. I'm just gonna check here. FEMA HF frequencies. So Federal Emergency Management Agency. And yeah, look at that. There's a big list here of frequencies, including some VHF ones, but there's quite a few HF ones here. Just check it out here if we can see anything else. Federal Disaster Scanner frequency. These are scanner frequencies. There's a lot of HF communications. Here is, so this might be interesting. American Red Cross, FEMA. Oh, this is perfect list. So it's probably an older list, but most of these frequencies don't change. Maybe check out this list. So there's federal, state, and local government agencies nationwide frequency. Some of them are voice, some of them are AL. Operation Secure USB frequencies. There's American Red Cross USB HF frequencies. Federal Emergency Management Agency, and upper lower sideband, some in AL, some in voice. There's a lot of frequencies in here. So check that out. So here is the frequency list I'm going to share with you guys here. I think there's some interesting stuff in there for sure. RFDXer 9445, only in the radio. Yeah, not very strong here. I could hear it, but it's not very strong here. Nerdy Gray Fox, nice to have you here. And fell in love with shortwave in 1965. He was 15, received the radio from his father, a 19 MK3. Spend the night after night listening. Those were magical days. Absolutely. Mountain Valley, MLA 30, bright white LED. I think you didn't mention the brightness. Actually, it's funny because on mine, the green LED is actually brighter than the white one. And last night or the night before, I was shutting down all the lights and I went to sleep. And I was wondering what was glowing in my office. And I looked, and there was a big round green spot on the wall, which was coming from that LED. William Helms from Florida, nice to have you here. Joe, nice to have you on board, my friend. DRKAOS, nice to have you here. Listening to Navtex 518 kilohertz. William Powell just purchased the XH Data D808 and have new PL 880, cannot resist. Perfect. Why resist? Why resist? What else do we have? Let's go down. V3KRP, nice to have you on board. Fast Eddie in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Take care, D1D JK in Germany. Always nice to have you here. Joe says, anyone know a good quality AAA rechargeable battery aside from the expensive Eneloop Pro? Get yourself the Amazon Basics. They're great. They're really, really good. I have purchased 16 AA's and 16 AAA's. And they are less expensive and they are very good. They come pre-charged. So Amazon Basics. You'll have pretty good batteries. Terry Cook, nice to have you here. KF7BQ. We will have don't worry, we will have a A20 reminder for sure. I'll even have a video. RFDXer, vodka cranberry again. Yes, it is. And I will need to go make myself another one. Yeah, MLA, I don't know. Well, the name on it is Mega Loop. So MLA would, I guess, mean Mega Loop Antenna. My guess. But it could be Magnetic Loop Antenna. Mark Stevens, nice to have you on board. Happy Friday. Crittenden Total 4, the bias T on the RSPDX is only on antenna B. Absolutely. Oh, I like that RFDX. They're magical loop antenna. Karn Patch DX. My first shortwave radio was a Halicrafters SX47. I bought it at a garage sale in Washington, D.C. Wow. CapMaxZ 1976. Does anyone know what those sounds are that sound like a modem connecting before and after the Cuban lady? It's kind of a digital version of the numbers. I believe there's a software that people use that can decode it. It's like numbers and numbers and numbers. Bob, nice to have you here from Massachusetts. Liam, is the Ethon Satellite 750 any good? From what I heard, it is pretty good. From what I heard. Unfortunately, I've never tried one. Take care, Kadarius. Enjoy your radios. CJ, the Chinese Fire Drake Jammer looks so good on Waterfall. I think you're right about that type of SDR. Take care, PLF Radio. Fais attention à toi et à la prochaine. We're all nerds. I mean, to love radio like we do, we're all nerds. That's it. You know. Keegan, the delivery of my order of the Ethon Executive Satellite was delayed and somehow canceled. That was weird. Kathleen, has anyone saved a list for ADR Uno with some interesting saved stations? Please share. René Charbonnier, good night. Take care, my friend. I love mine. I really, really love my Amazon Basics. What else do we have? Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about the Lada from IKEA that apparently are not bad at all, too. Do I still use my 102-inch antenna? It's on the balcony outside in the rain doing nothing. I'd like to maybe set it up again, but I don't know. We'll see. KC Red Dragon, nice to have you on board. Daniel Edwards, nice to have you here. Love Shortwave. Cool. Towns 1021, take care. Johnny 911, nice to have you here. William Moser, nice to have you on board. No, I'm not sick. I'm just talking too much. Got a very, very scratchy throat. James Farley, nice to have you on board from New Jersey. So I'm actually down the list now. Not bad. Crittenden Tuttle 4. This might be a dumb question, but which is the proper way to aim the MLA-30? Does the whole circle loop face the source, or does the thin wire face the source? It's a little more complex than that. It's like shaped in an oval, the way that they are kind of directional. You know what? If you're listening to shortwave, it doesn't matter much, honestly. If you're listening to medium wave, then you'll need to rotate it for sure to have directional capabilities. But it's a very it's the way that it's made. It's like there's two big loops of reception and a thin space where it actually nulls the signal really, really a lot. I would need to look at the pattern of a loop antenna. Somebody in the chat room might be able to explain it better than I. And but in for the most part, for shortwave listening, the MLA-30, you just position it for the lowest noise possible and keep it like that. Steve Rancher, do people use a rotator for an MLA-30? Some people do. And if you tune around, or if you're using the MLA-30 for the medium wave band DXing, then yes, you will need one. It's going to be very, very important to do so. because you'll be able to null out stations and get other stations on the frequencies. But then again, for shortwave, it's, I rotated mine and my W6LVP on shortwave signals. It has very, very small effect, and in most cases, it doesn't even have an effect. So if you're a shortwave listener only, rotating, not necessary. You will position it to have the lowest noise and just leave it like that. So you are watching the Shortwave Show, and we're talking about radio. And let's talk. I'm going to go fill up my my drink, and we're going to talk about some good old shortwave stations of the past. If you want, talk a little bit more about what we were, listening back then. And maybe some of you want to, while I'm gone, maybe some of you want to share what's your first radio that you had when you started. And I am back in a few seconds. I'm listening to 5616 Air Traffic Control. And I'm back in a couple of minutes after filling up my drink. Hey, Mr. Lucky Train, nice to have you here. Fast Load, nice to have you on board. Hello. So we are back. Let's check it out here. So cheers, everybody. Matt says the turns affect things depending on where the noise is, but sometimes turning this way or that seems to impact gain. I found that with my homebrewed passive loop, W6LVP, but not yet with the MLA30. Matt says first actual shortwave capable receiver was a 1935 airline tabletop that was medium wave and shortwave from 6.5 megahertz. And I could get on it was WWV. All I could get on it was WWV 5 megahertz. And I bet the first time you heard WWV, you were wondering, what is that? You know, the first time you hear a time station, you're like, what is that? Why is it broadcasting time? Old radio man. First radio was AM band razor blade radio my dad made. Matt says first receiver since I've gotten serious was the Texan PL600. Chuck CP Davis, Irish Cream and Whiskey Dreams. Sounds good. Cristoforo, what's a little radio I can get before we go on lockdown? We can get any radio even after the lockdown. I mean, you can order online a Texan receiver or XH data, or you'll still get mail, pretty much. Mad Radio DXer says my first proper shortwave radio was a Grundig Yacht Boy 215. Still have one. I got secondhand, but it's faulty. Hopefully can get it fixed someday. I have DXer's first receiver, the Realistic Radio Shack DX160. That was a very popular model. Very popular model. William Moser, did anyone see the price on the new Texan? Yep, $399 US. That's way too much. I'm not buying that at that price. Jeff Barry. Sorry. Jeff Barry. I have the PL600 also. Love it. Cool. It is a nice radio. Mr. Lucky Train, nice being here. Maybe you talked about this earlier on the other evening show, but is there a way to visually distinguish the MLA30 from original one? Is it labeled? It's labeled plus on the new one. So when you look at the inserter box or the amplifier circuit on the antenna itself, it says MLA30 plus. There's a plus sign next to it. Cyberflyer 1. RF, I still have my DX160, my DX160. Like I said, that was a very popular model. Nerdy Gray Fox, before May 1st radio, I was 12. It was a crystal radio. It's cool. That was the beginning of my shortwave quest. And I will never forget it. I am hooked since. Daniel Edwards, first real shortwave radio, Garantic Yacht Boy 215. Vince Perrault, my first shortwave try was with my parents' old 1933 Marconi radio. Wow. My uncle bought it new in 1933. It's in perfect condition and still working. Even have the manual and the bill in the envelope. Oh, wow. That is beautiful. Nothing like these old radios. They are so amazing and so beautiful. I have always. I'm just looking at something here. I'm getting emails of all the restaurants that I go and eat regularly, telling me that they are taking measures for the virus. What else do we have? René Paquin, salut. His first radio was the Radio Shack DX200. Like I said, my first... So there was one before that I don't know what model it was, which was a multi-band. But the first radio I owned personally that I knew was shortwave and all, the Realistic DX100 that I purchased in 1982. And it still works and still have it here. Actually, I want to set it up one night and do like a night of what if I had only the DX100 and tune around shortwave. So... Matambale, first shortwave radio was either a one Words Airline shortwave CB air and AM radio, or it was the little Radio Shack regenerative shortwave radio kit. I can't remember which came first. Mr. Lucky Train, does the new MLA30 have any cons you've discovered? Not really. It's better, and there's really nothing much. I've been wondering one little thing. If the metal wire that comes with it might be a little thinner. I'm not sure. I need to check it out correctly, but I don't have any negatives about the MLA30 Plus. You know, there could be, because I mean, if it was more sensitive and stuff, maybe it could have, performance problems on some, or overloading or whatever. Nope, I can't say I've seen any cons on the new one. William Moser's first radio, the Patrolman. These were quite popular portables also. Matt says, actually, my dad knew all about WWV and dug this radio out of the basement so he could show me. I was so blown away that a Colorado station could be heard worldwide. Cyber Flyer 1 uses the JRC NRD 525, which is amazing, and the Sony 2010D. Liam, yeah, cell calls. RFDXer, other popular models were the Yaesu FRG7 and a Kenwood R1000. Tom DXer, first radio in 1965, Lafayette HA63. Wow. Cyber Flyer 1 now is having fun with the XH Data D808. Mr. Lucky Train's first shortwave was a real tone transistor portable. Wow. Fast Load, his first serious radio was a Zenith Transoceanic. Those were very nice and are still very nice. David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board. Currently in confinement due to the virus. And that'll be my situation for the upcoming 15 days at least. But you've got radio. And you know what? You'll be happy using radio. And that's it. Steve Richard says, first radio, my mom, who was a naval officer in World War II and involved in the development of radar, and I built a Space Ranger shortwave receiver kit in the mid-60s when he was 12. Wow. That's so cool. Steve says, we worked at the kitchen table every night after dinner. The kit was a success, and I remember receiving Radio Quito almost every night. Oh, man. That was crazy. So, we'll have a little bit of, how about we have a little bit of, sounds from the past here. So let's, of course, I often put the same one, but they are really, really nice. Really, really nice to hear. So here is a show that came on back in the back when a station from Quito, Ecuador, was very popular. So who can? And I'm telling you guys, nostalgia is in the air, and it's coming up now. So, what's this all about, you guys?
DX Party Line. This is a program for DXers by DXers and about the DXing hobby. We invite you to stay tuned for the next 30 minutes to the DX Party Line. Monday, time for another Monday edition of the DX Party Line. I'm Clayton Howard, your host, and my wife Helen will be along a little later in the program. And This is rather a difficult or hard, I don't know quite how to describe it, program for us because, as you may realize, some of you I'm sure have heard that we'll be leaving Keto soon. And this is the last time that we'll be hosting a DX party line. It's going to be hard for us. We're going to miss being on the air twice a week for DXers and shortwave listeners. But we do appreciate all the contacts we've made, all the friends, and your contribution and your letters and help. Well, that's enough of that type of beginning for the program. Let's get on with the business that's ahead of us, and we would like to encourage you to write to us. Write to the DX party line. Don't write to me anymore. Write to John Beck, who will be taking over the broadcast. That last name Beck is spelled B-E-C-K. Write to John Beck, and I'm sure you'll find he'll cooperate just as much as I've tried to in the past. Our address is the DX party line, care of HCJB, box 691, Quito, Ecuador, South America. This is Monday. We're starting a
So,
and as usual on the Monday.
I'm sure some of you got nostalgic here with the DX party line. I actually have, and this isn't the actual QSL card they were sending out back then. I actually have that card in my collection here, and it is hand signed. Because here you've got some signing on the right side here, but mine is actually hand signed by with a real pen by Clayton Howard and his wife. I remember having a letter with it saying, this is our address when we'll move. So they moved to Florida and USA, and saying, if you want to continue correspondence, we'll be happy to. You can, write to us there. And so, HCJB with the DX party line. That was really cool. So we're going to get a little nostalgic with some more of the things we're going to listen to here. Steve says the kit was limited by a crappy antenna setup, but it was great fun. Those first times when we build kits, listen to the radio, and learn about shortwave. I mean, I remember what amazed me the most with shortwave and probably kept me there was understanding that I was listening to a signal from a station thousands of miles away or thousands of kilometers away. I remember thinking, wow, I'm hearing Radio France from France, because back in the 80s, relays were not used much. There was a little bit of relays. Radio Japan would use the Gabon relay. There was Voice of Free China, which is today Radio Taiwan, that used WFR relay in Florida. But there was Radio Netherlands that would use the Bonaire, Netherlands Antilles relay. BBC had a few relays. There was the Antigua relay. That was the one transmitting to North America on 5975. That's why it was so strong. So there are some relays, but there isn't a lot. And back then, the majority of the stations you listen to are from the country you're actually tuning. So, I remember listening to Radio Norway and thinking, wow, this comes from Norway. Or, Radio Sweden, that comes from Sweden. This is so cool, There was something amazing about a radio signal from such a big distance coming and making it all over, to your area. Kevin J. Napalo says, World Radio on 9955 kilohertz. Let's see if I can hear it. That one's directed towards the south, so it's a pretty good signal. Yep. Pretty good signal, actually, from World of Radio. Tom DXer, HCJB in Quito was the first shortwave station I heard. So I've got second question. Now that I ask you about your radios, what is everybody's first station that you remember listening to? I mean, it's probably maybe not the first one. I'm still trying to grasp what was the first station I've heard. So apart from the multi-band, and I know that I heard the BBC, my first souvenir of a station I heard on shortwave on the DX100, that first night that I listened to, I think was Call Israel, that had an English 30-minute English program towards North America back then. That seems to resonate in my head of Call Israel being the first station I heard. Rufus Newt says, was in and out of shortwave since the late 70s. About 94, I restored a Nordmink Scandia. Got me back into the hobby. Cool. So David taking his confinement just to make sure that everything is all right. William Helms. My first radio was my dad's 1970 Air Castle 136 F1. I first listened to with him to Fire, Police, and Air. I still have it. It's all I have of is to remember him by. Well, cherish that and keep it always, my friend. For sure. Current patch DX. HCJB was my all-time favorite station. Tom DX or DX Partyline HCJB, I remember that well. RFDX or HCJB was the best. Yeah, WTWW is kind of nice, and with the music and the different programs. Kevin Jane Apollo cannot remember the Radio Shack model, but as a kid, I loved listening to ship to shore calls and BBC and old radio shows like The Shadow. So, and you're 56, so one of those probably one of those popular realistic models from the time. Cyberflyer 1, member of Radio Budapest Shortwave Club. I also was a member of the Radio Budapest Shortwave Club. If I remember well, to be a member, you had to send a certain amount of reception reports, eh? And when you had achieved that number, you were officially a member, and you would get, I remember I got that certificate. I have, because if you remember, they would send out a special huge QSL card to here's one. There we go. Here's one. I got one in hand. This is a 1987. This is the 1986. And those big QSLs were sent to people that were on in the shortwave Radio Budapest Shortwave Club. You, as a member of Radio Budapest Shortwave Club, have contributed with your reception reports to the technical work of Radio Budapest, and this special QSL expresses our appreciation of this fact. And of course, they had to say it was Miss Gilles Letourneau, not that, I was a girl. It took time. I told them, I would write to them and say, hey, it's not Miss, it's Mr. And I think it took 3 or 4 years before they actually corrected the Miss. Rick in Ohio, nice to have you here. W8PRR. Nerdy Gray Fox, take care, my friend. It's nice to have you on board. What else do we have? Take care of that shortwave. Happy DX. Matambale, first station. BBC, Voice of America. Probably WWV. Cyberflyer 1, Radio Moscow. Oh, man, Radio Moscow. One of the amazing things is the amount of frequencies they would use. Radio Moscow. Shortwave.
American.
Listen to the amount of frequencies that they are actually going to mention on this one. So this is a recording from 1985 for Radio Moscow.
Service of Radio Moscow broadcasting on 17.70, 15.45, 15.42, 15.14, 12.05, 9.87, 9.76, 9.72, 9.70, 7.32, 7.18, 7.15, 7.11, and 6.11 megahertz. This is Radio Moscow. Here's the news. First, the headlines. The Political Bureau of the Soviet Communist Party Central Committee has discussed practical issues of the country's home and foreign policy. There were anti-racist actions in South Africa to mark International Day of Struggle Against Racial Discrimination on Thursday. And Israeli troops have carried out new raids on populated centers in southern Lebanon. Those are the headlines. Now here's the news in full. The Political Bureau of the Soviet Communist Party Central Committee has discussed at its regular meeting ways of putting the country's home and foreign policy into effect. It considered tasks ensuing from the decisions adopted by
That sounds very Radio Moscow from the times, eh? Man. Radio Moscow World Service. That one was a fun station in a way. You know, I mean, the Cold War is a very unique time for listening to shortwave. I was happy to be part of that, actually. I was happy to be part of that weird. It was, you know, a weird time, felt weird. You know, we were at that moment where we thought that, I don't know, we would probably all end in some kind of nuclear winter. You know, it'd all be gone at some point in a flash. It was really, really crazy times. Radio Moscow, first of all, you know, you're a North American kid, 13, 14 years old. You've got that, you know, all the stories everybody's shoving in your head of communism and the USSR. And I remember the first time I wrote to Radio Moscow, I was convinced that I would never get a reply back. And I don't remember how long it took, but I remember when I got that letter in the mail that said something like they were using the Cyrillic alphabet, so it says like Radio Mogba. I would said Radio Mogba. It was Radio Moscow. And that, if you guys that corresponded, remember, they were white envelopes, and it was a blue line with Radio Moscow written in that lettering. And I remember I got a QSL card and the letters telling me how they were happy to have me as a listener and to write in again and so on. I think I had a sticker from Radio Moscow or something also. And I remember looking at the envelope and thinking, wow, this comes from the USSR. This is so cool. And when I did my shortwave radio lecture in French class, I remember everybody being amazed when they saw the letters and the cards that I got from Russia, from the USSR back then. That was impressive. I mean, you know, it was like two worlds, and we didn't have the impression that we could communicate. And I always remember the first time ever that I asked a question for the mailbag show, and they would send you a letter, and they would say, "Here are the times and frequencies when we will answer your questions." And there were several times and frequencies over a span of several days. So the chances of you hearing your question answered was, pretty sure. And I still was amazed at one other thing that they did, is that my name is a French name, and it's Gilles Letourneau. And nobody gets it right. When you write, nobody gets it right. I'm back 2 seconds, guys. Paul the cat wants to get out. So I would write to all of these stations, and when you would hear my name, when my name was in French, it was okay. I mean, when I would write to stations in French, they would have my name correct because it was a French name. But when I would write to stations in English, I mean, I was called Gillis, Gillies, whatever. Some weren't even mentioning it. They were saying, "Well, sorry, you are." And I was amazed because I had sent my letter to the English service, and the guy came up and said Gilles Letourneau. He pronounced it perfectly. And I thought, wow, they actually took the time. They went to some other service and they said, "Do you know how to pronounce this?" Because it was perfectly pronounced. And that had amazed me at the time, I remember. And I remember they answered my question. My question was, and I still remember my question. My question was, how many Canadian citizens visit the USSR every year? Now, I don't remember much of the answer, but I remember they answered. They answered according to their own statistics or whatever that they had on Canadian citizens visiting the USSR. Man, these are things I'll never forget that. Never. I remember, like sitting down at the radio waiting for my question to be answered. It's like, oh, this is so cool. They actually mentioned my name on Radio Moscow. It's like anybody that's been in the hobby and wrote to these stations for a while. The first time you hear your name on a shortwave station, oh, Joe from wherever, wrote to us and blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, it's just so cool. It's cool to hear your name, and it's like, wow, this is so much fun. So, Cyberflyer 1, Radio Moscow, WOHP 1390. Rick says it's Radio Moscow, 1965, Ali Crafters S38. RFDX, their first station in the log was Radio Clarin from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Never heard that one. I think they were still active when I started in 82. Keegan, first station was WWV. Mr. Lucky Train says, I really miss as a teenager during the early 60s. Sending in those DX written reports and even small audio reel-to-reel tape. And getting those great QSL cards in freebie That was amazing. DRAF, first station was BBC, then Voice of America, which blew my mind having been a medium wave DXer. Wow. Phil, I want to know why the maritime bands are not usable anymore. Will you please go into a full length explanation to me as to why they are no longer in use? They are still in use, but they are used very little compared to the past. And the simple and very quick answer that just explains it is that they use satellite links now rather than shortwave for all of those communications. But you still have some stuff. If you listen closely and regularly, you will hear stuff from time to time. But yeah, everything went satellite at some point. Andy Coley, Radio Luxembourg. Radio Luxembourg, yes. Like their sysop. Nice to have you here. Hearing squealing noise on 5085. 5085. Am I hearing anything? Got nothing here. Unless you're hearing some kind of jamming of WTWW from Cuba. Hello, my friend from Russia. Terry Cook, first shortwave radio was General Electric EF-150 kit. First non-kit was a National NC-109. Paquet, my in-laws were German, so before the whole online radio craze, I would tune into German broadcasts, and they really appreciated. Huh, interesting. Interesting. David, official SWL channel. That's in a nutshell what drew me to radio. On the net, I obviously had already accessed content from abroad, but I didn't know a simple RF signal could make it internationally. Oh, man. William Helms, HM01, La Voz de la Chica, when I first bought the Grundig G5. Rodelva 65, first station Voice of America on a realistic DX394. Cyberflyer 1, correct, my number was RB1063. I had VE1214RB was a number. Man. Tac for Alt says, I'm new to shortwave listening and live in Honolulu. I have a Kato 1103 with a wire antenna that it came with. I live in a condo on 11th floor facing north to the mountains. Any antenna suggestions? Your best bet would be what we actually talked about earlier, which is a Chinese loop antenna that you can purchase, which is the MLA30 loop antenna. If you go on eBay, you'll find it around 40-ish US dollars, shipping included. That would probably help you. You will need an adapter to plug it to the radio, but you'll be surprised. Shitty Pyro 90 forgot to post in my 99th QSL card from Radio Free Asia on the Facebook group. Oh, wow. Mr. Lucky Train, my most memorable shortwave experience was sending in a reception report along with question to Radio Moscow. Those were talking. This is so amazing. I still have that memory of the time. Glenn, Handicrafters 120S, got it in Germany in 1967, and HCJB. Fastload worked Argentina on what band? Lee Burkett, the first radio station I listened to was Radio Luxembourg on Itachi Ghetto Blaster. Oh, wow, a ghetto blaster. A lot of those ghetto blasters from the 70s and 80s actually had the shortwave bands in them. That was cool, actually, that they added the shortwave bands. M-Stacks, China has replaced Radio Moscow as the world frequency hog. Well, it's not a frequency hog. I mean, there's a lot of space on shortwave. They can use as many frequencies as they want. It was more of a problem back then, because back then Radio Moscow used so many frequencies and it was very limited. Chuck C.P. Davis, 1965 console TV with built-in radio. I heard the signal in the late 70s and early 80s. I still can't figure out how the signal came into an FM, AM, FM radio of WWV. You know what? It probably was an image. A lot of these radios were not super high quality. So when a station would be very strong, they could overload the circuitry and you would have an image of some other station, honestly. Shady Pyro 90. What will be your 100 QSL card? Haha. Do you have a hunch, a station that you wrote to? You're saying, maybe that one's going to be the one, or you have no idea. And how many QSL? Okay. And the other question, Shitty Pyro 90, how many stations are you waiting a reply from? That's interesting also. Liberal Flyer wants as well, brings back memories. Yep. Dr. Sisop, I am building my jammers for Radio Vania. Oh, man. Let's start jamming Radio Havana, Cuba. Tom DXer says, Moscow, Shitty Power 90. No, not my favorite Cuban radio station, Radio Havana, Cuba. Phil, do you want to tell me why the maritime bands are no longer in use? I just told you. Jim Gordon, nice to have you on board. Radio Budapest provided one of my first QSL cards in the early 70s for a rather weird frequency of 9833. They used the Scott Charlie Cat and their English language staff. You know, stations had weird frequencies back then. I remember Voice of Vietnam on like 9977, and there was a lot of weird things. Mad Radio DXer, wow, never noticed Radio Moscow was also on the 40-meter band. Yes, they were all over the place back then. And when I used to tune my first ever shortwave radio, same as CRI nowadays, yeah, they had a lot of, actually, I remember hearing ham radio operators in the 80s getting real mad at the fact that at some times Radio Moscow could be on at least 7 or 8 different 40-meter frequencies. I got one QSL here from Radio Moscow on 7100. And remember, for those that don't know, today the international broadcast band of 41 meters is 7200. That's where it starts. So that means 7200 to 7300. There's an overlap of the 41-meter international broadcast band and the 40 meters amateur band. But back then, because that was a change, there was a change. I don't remember the year when that changed. But back then, 41 meters actually started at 7100. Almost all of the 40-meter band was a shared band with international broadcasts. The only thing is the international broadcasters needed to be like in Europe or Asia, places like that. They could use those frequencies. But in North America, it was not allowed to use a 40-meter band frequency for shortwave international broadcasting. Keegan has World Radio on WRMI 9955 S5 Plus, Mr. Licky training. And after hearing live my name and question answered shortly thereafter, I received in the mail 7-inch real audio tape of the entire show. Oh, really? Wow, that is so cool. I remember getting tapes of music, 4-track tapes of music. From Radio Sofia, Bulgaria. Here's somewhere, I need to find them. 4-track cassette tapes that had Bulgarian music. Those, Bulgarian voices. Obviously, it was like a regular tape, like a BASF tape that they had made copies of, but RFDX or Radio Moscow would sometimes get QRM from the Russian woodpecker. Yeah, it happened. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jim Garden, remember Charlie Coutts being described as the Lord of Radio Budapest by one of the very, very popular Scottish newspapers, by the Sunday Post. M-Stacks, yeah, Magba. Chuck C.P. Davis heard the Lincolnshire Poacher at some point. And you know what that is? It's one of those old number stations. So, Lincolnshire Poacher. And I'm telling you guys, if you block me for this one on my monetization, I'm going to go mad. Some of those creepy stuff from the number stations of the past. Mickey Delmage, welcome aboard. Nice to have you here. Silver Flyer 1 says, Joe, I still have the envelopes. Such a nerd. You know what? I had kept all the correspondence. When I was a teenager, I would keep all correspondence, letters, envelopes, everything in big boxes. When I moved, I had to make a choice of what I'm going to bring, and I left those behind, and they were thrown in the garbage or something. I find that so sad because I would have loved to have all of these envelopes and be able today to look at, the correspondence I received, the letters. But, it's gone. Liam, Lincolnshire is non-existent anymore. It's been gone off of shortwave for a long, long time. So what else do we have? Oh, man. Shitty Pyro 90 still have the recording of Echo Hope playing the Gannon style. Oh, man. Mike Hill, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. Oh, that's possible also, Matt. They could have been fluent in several languages. Mike Hill, Comrade Jill. Man, that reminds me when I was playing these retro games with my nephew on the retro gaming channel I had in the past. Well, it's still there, but I don't do nothing. We were playing, I think it was on the Amiga 500. We were playing world games, and I would call myself Igor. And Igor was from the proud nation of the USSR. Oh, man. And every time I won a game, I was like, my comrades will be happy with the Russian national anthem in the background from the Amiga game. Oh, man. Caesar, what about shortwave DRM? I wish it didn't exist, personally. It's the crappiest thing that shortwave can have. It doesn't work well. It's difficult to decode. It's not designed for shortwave. There's no receivers. I mean, I don't know why The people behind DRM, they must be really, really good at actually selling their stuff, because I don't know why stations still think that DRM is a thing. Honestly, it's not. Rufus says, no problem with your name. Your mother's name is Ghislaine. Ghislaine. Current Patch DX. WWV was the first signal I heard, but it was Radio Deutsche Welle that turned into one night that light the fire for radio. Yeah, Deutsche Welle. Here's a those that wonder. So Deutsche Welle was the voice of of Germany. It still is, but it not much left. Deutsche Welle. Let's see here. Any old Deutsche Welle broadcast on shortwave? Hey, there's a video from a guy on the official SWL channel from 6 years ago. Deutsche Welle interval signal into French 21780. That was weak. Look at that on my icon. 21780. Man, I think I have the interval signal here. That is better. Here we go. Play. Pretty cool. By the way, guys, if you want to have a ringtone of interval signals from shortwave, Stephen Cooper has interval signal ringtones. It's not a free app, but it's like not expensive. It has ringtones that you can add to your phone for all in the radio, BBC, China Radio, Deutsche Welle, Far East Broadcasting, HTJB, Call Israel, NHK Radio Japan, Radio Poland, Radio Australia, Argentina, RAI, Italy, Radio Berlin, Radio Canada, Radio Canada. No. This is not the one that I wanted. There's another one. Oh, look at that. What's that? What station is that? So, lots of stuff in here. I'm getting nostalgic now, thinking of all that past. I'm very happy. You know what? I'm one of the things I'm extremely happy is to be part of all that history of shortwave radio. And even though I arrived late, because we all arrived at some point, and I see some of you telling me, well, you're lucky because you've seen that and you lived through that. And I would have loved to, like I look at what was on the radio and I think, well, it would have been fun if I had listened in the 70s or the 60s. But I started in 1982, and I have that history starting from 1982. Like some of you have, that shortwave history starting in 2015 or 2018 or 2010, much later than me. And I mean, you probably look at all of that tonight and you're like, oh man, wish I had, it was another time and there was some stuff there, but it's kind of cool, but we gotta, live with the times. At the same time, if you had been, if you'd started in, in 1982, well, maybe you'd be 50-year-old like me rather than 25 or 30 or 35 years old. There's advantages and there's other, more negative points to it. It's like somebody that tells me, hey, I was listening to that station in 1966. Well, I wasn't born. That means you're older than me, So there's the negative side of that, but there's a positive of I'm happy to have all seen that and listened to all of that, It's pretty cool. Cyberflyer 1, I had my name called on the Radio Netherlands on my 16th birthday. Could not believe it. Oh, wow, this is so cool. DJ Calquito. Nice to have you on board. Did 3 or 4 interviews on our Radio France International in medium wave Paris. Wow. Cool. Current Patch DX, love your story about Radio Moscow. 302 Video Gates. Been a ham for a year now. Under your recommendation, ordered a Radio R108. I'm going to have fun with it. It's a nice radio. And 73 and 1 NOS. DJ Calquito, great times at Maison de la Radio. Pretty cool. Mike Hill, I'm not sure if my first station heard, although it was probably one of the biggies like BBC, Radio Netherlands, or Radio Canada International. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX. Nice to have you here from Yonkers, New York. Tom DXer says, I got a copy of Chairman Mao's Little Red Book from Radio Beijing when the Red Guards were wrecking the country. Wow. James Farley, Radio Prague Interval Signal. The original one, so this one I have here is... That's the original one. That was in the time that they were communist. Any web SDR, as long as you're listening to the bands on shortwave, anywhere. I don't think there's a better place than another for maritime stuff of what's left, Phil. Battery DXer had a Panasonic boombox in the 80s, and it also had shortwave. Technically, it was my first shortwave radio before getting the Grande Yacht Boy, which was my first proper shortwave radio. When I would go up north in my teenage years, a friend of mine had a big boombox that had shortwave on it, and so many nights I was all alone at the shack there. And I remember most of the time we were there in the weekends, and most of the time that I was alone when it happened was Saturday nights. And I remember tuning in because he didn't know anything about it. My friend never had tuned that SW thing on his boombox. He only listened to music. And every time I was alone on a Saturday night, what I would do was tune in the DX party line from ACJB that was coming in on his boombox. It was kind of cool. Oh man. Like there's this up when he was in Honolulu. Did not pick up 93.95, 77.80 WWV in Colorado. Only WWVH in Asian stations. Tom DXer, Radio Berlin International sent me the hardcover brown book, which listed with pics all the Nazis still on the run. Oh, wow. Wow, that's something. Radio Berlin International. Oh, man. Radio Berlin International. We have, yeah, look at that. Mike Hill, my mom threw away my QSL cards when I moved away from home. She didn't appreciate them. Radio Berlin International. Oh, that's such a shame. Hey, it's still playing. Okay. Danny Shortwave Radio DX. My first experience with shortwave listening was my brother's JVC boombox from the late 70s. Wow. Doesn't matter, Bobby Burgess. I mean, there's an up and a down button, and it's there for that, and it's okay. Honestly, the people that post the dislikes, they think it actually makes things worse, when in reality, it actually creates more hype on everything I do. So thank you. There's always going to be haters, anyways. And it's not important. We can't give him that glorious moment. David in Barcelona, the boombox we had at home in the 90s was a Sony CFS W350L. L being the version for long wave and shortwave. Oh, interesting. It was this boombox that I arguably made my first shortwave reception. Okay, interesting. There's a radio station here that uses the Lincolnshire Poacher interval in one of their station ID clips. Oh, really? Oh, man. And Radio the Extra, Lincolnshire Poacher always remind me as it were the beginning of the children's program. Hey, they were big. It is, Mad Radio the Extra. It was the start of the big government children fighting each other. Exactly like Matt says. Seeing the trolls that have pretty much no effect is exactly what we want. Oh, I'm going to fight it again, Matt. You know what? Last time they did it, it's the guys from the Conet Project. And I came back and said, no, that's not yours. I understand it. It's part of your CD package. But when the CD package uses somebody else's stuff, you don't own it. It's not yours. And they immediately backed off. If they do, I'll fight it again. Last time they backed off in 24 hours. I was like, okay, we're not going to fight this. No, because you can't. It's not yours. It's not yours. You know, it's not a Madonna song. It's the Lincolnshire Poacher. I like Mantambale say, you know, I like the fact that you can dislike stuff. It's okay. Oh, cool. Thanks, Danny Shortwave Radio DX. He says that the eBay seller that I bought the MLA30 Plus from posted an announcement saying that all the newer MLA30 are now the Plus version for all of those that ordered after February 1st. So cool. Thanks for the info. KC Red Dragon 10715 Cuban number station. Keegan has 6070 CFRX Toronto has 5. But you know, Bobby Burgess, when you give the ability to give a positive or negative or something, you got to live with the fact that that's the way it goes. I think that it's okay that there's a positive, negative. You can't have just positive. That wouldn't be fair, you know. And I mean, they're trolls. Who cares? You know, when you have no life and take the time to just downvote something, it's your problem. They're miserable in their home, they're miserable in their lives, and they have to do something, and they think it actually does something. I don't care. Who cares? Steve, in the 90s, I owned several commercial radio stations in Minnesota and Nebraska. The Minnesota station was KLIZ with a 50,000 watt flamethrower playing classic rock. Oh, wow, cool. At night, the station was directional, aimed north over the pole. We sent them a t-shirt as well as confirming the reception report. Oh, wow. That is cool. That is cool. Man, with the Xer, man, I had forgotten what the Deutsche Welle interval signal sounded like. Oh, man. Radio Budapest. Radio Budapest. Interval signal. So, Radio Budapest. Let's get it on now. Radio Budapest. Interval signal. And this is the old Radio Budapest. Well, that was Radio Budapest. There was one that I loved to, for some reason, was Radio Norway's interval signal. This one really brings me nostalgic. Oh, man. So the other one earlier, by the way, that I didn't say what it was, which was this one. That was Radio Finland. Radio Finland. This one, a lot of you will remember. Radio Netherlands. Radio Netherlands. Bulgaria, when it's called, so at the end, Radio Bulgaria was called Radio Bulgaria, but in communist times, it was called Radio Sofia. So this is the communist era of Radio Sofia. So that was Radio Sofia in the good old days. Or were they? It depends where you were. Huh? Good old days of the 80s weren't necessarily the same good old days, depending if you were here in North America or behind the Iron Curtain. Maybe it was not good old days for you. Although some were, some don't. It's very, very controversial. Chuck CP Davis, this show is so much fun. Fast load work Japan on FT4, 20 meters. Cool. It's about this time. On 20 meters, local time here in Montreal, from 5 to 7 p.m. is that time when it actually works. Especially at this time, being close to the equinox with the Gray Line DX. Current Patch DX says, cheers to you, man. Moosehead, cool. So, Finland. Yes, it was Finland. And your DXer says, I have asked you, please play the interval signal for Swiss Radio International and Radio Netherlands. So you had Radio Netherlands. Here's Swiss Radio International. I got to say, this one also gets me. So that's Swiss Radio International. KC Red Dragon, what would be nice to connect a radio online so we can chat and can change its frequency so we can tune to different stations? Well, you guys can tune in to SDRs that are online and do that, honestly. Nicholas Heyer, nice to have you on board, Nick, K9XN. KC Red Dragon listening to Global Air Command 98992. Fishkoff, Cold War shortwave emissions was something special, at least in my opinion. It was a strange time, so it went with that strange time. Honestly. Pretty crazy. The best place for interval signals of every station that existed is shortwave interval signal. Man. There was a intervalsignal.net is the place. So here it is. I'm going to share this website with you guys. It's by country. On the left side, you got all the countries. If you want to listen to old interval signals, check it out. This site has every single interval signals that existed. I can tell you that. Yeah, Curacao cards. Mike Hill, not my first station, but my second logbook was Radio Peking, China. Radio Peking. Here's a little something. Here's a little something. So China Radio International had several names over time. At first, it was called Radio Peking. When I was listening in the 80s, they had changed to Radio Beijing. And today it's China Radio International. So here's Radio Peking shortwave. This is from get this, guys. Radio Peking shortwave broadcast from 1967.
Radio Peking. This is Radio Peking. This is Radio Peking. This is Radio Peking. Brothers and friends, we begin our program with a quotation from Chairman Mao Zedong. Chairman Mao Zedong has said, "Of all things in the world, people are the most precious. Under the leadership of the Communist Party, as long as there are people, every kind of miracle can be performed." This passage is quoted from the commentary, "The Bankruptcy of the Idealist Conception of History," written by Chairman Mao Zedong in 1949.
That's different from today's China Radio International. I can tell you that. Oh, man. But that was more a representation of what shortwave was all about. The ideology of everybody. Everybody wanted to give their own opinion and their own way of thinking and their own politics and so on. That was what shortwave was all about back then. It still is, but it's softer. Today is very soft. We don't see too much. Even China Radio International, which for me isn't at all a representation of what China is technically. They even hired people that speak English really well. It's not the same thing, Casey Red Dragon, yes, 100051 upper sideband is Gander, Newfoundland, Canada. And they broadcast at the 50th minute and the 20th minute of each hour. Brian Weidenheimer, nice to have you on board. Almost a blizzard. Whoa. Matt, the station that uses Lincolnshire Poacher is a college station. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Funny. Mr. Lucky Train got Stephen Cooper's interval signal on Play Store. Real nostalgia bargain at $1.99. Thanks for the info. And Stephen Cooper was in the chat room a couple of years back. I think he backed off a little bit. Stephen Cooper was very, very active in the shortwave community for a while. And, there's a lot of trolling going around, and there's a lot of, there's actually a few people I could name their real names because I know they are major trolls. And I know that some of them were in the chat room tonight. And you know what? Some people get to a point where they're like, you know what? I don't need this crap, And Stephen Cooper, I think, backed off for that reason. Because he got to deal with all the trolls and all the, all the crap that happens. Shitty Pyro 90, 7220, Radio Romania International. Mike Hill, looking at the old logbook. Blows me away with all the stations I was listening to. Greece, Albania, Switzerland, Belgium, Australia, Japan, Poland, Vatican. So what's left today in there? You could listen to Japan, Vatican City, Greece, and Albania. Those are still on. The other ones are gone. Talking of Australia. Hey, Brent, take care, my friend. It's nice to have you here. Talking of interval signal. How about this one? Radio Australia. Nicholas loves the on the air sign. It is nice, very nice, and thanks once again to Brian for this really nice gift. Mike Hill remembers Radio Budapest. Fishkoff. Any chance of Alex Jones? You mean me getting arrested for selling fake coronavirus, cures? Come on. I'm not going to be here tonight. Trenton Military KC Red Dragon is on 6754 and 15034. 6754 at this time and 15034 in the daytime. Nicholas loves the interval signal. So go to the one that I just posted and you'll have all of them. What else do we have? The Happy Station. Yeah, Radio Netherlands. Radio Tirana. What's nice with Radio Tirana is, there's the original. So if you listen to WRMI, Radio Tirana still has relays via WRMI. They can listen on shortwave. So that's today's interval signal. But in the communist era, when they were communist, that was the interval signal. That was kind of harsh communist. Let's all be communists together, my friends. It doesn't play anymore. Here. Let's just march on and be proud communists. Sounds like that. Oop, still playing. The interval signal of Radio Bulgaria was pretty much the same as the Sofia, but it was kind of a little different. Mike Hill loves the Swiss radio. David says, awesome intervals, Jill. If it wasn't for you, it would have been much more difficult for me to discover shortwave before I discovered it myself. Well, that's what I'm here for, and thank you so much. Oh yeah, the animal voice. Yeah, absolutely. And you know that those animal sounds were made by the actual staff at Radio Botswana. They would imitate the animals in the interval signal. Do I have it here? Radio Botswana interval. Do I have the interval signal? That was a harder one to find, eh? Nope. I'm surprised no one has Radio Botswana's interval signal. Come on, somebody must have that. I mean, that was great. This is just so funny. I remember hearing that every day, every night when they would sign on. Oh man. Caesar, was before more radio stations on shortwave band from Africa. Yes, it was in the 80s. The 60-meter band was Africa. It was either South America or Africa. So what I would do is late afternoon in North America, East Coast here. Starting late afternoon, we would get all the stations from Africa checking in. So it would be Radio Nigeria, Gabon. We would have Radio Cameroon. We would have. Oh man, I'm trying to just remember the countries. There were tons and tons of countries on from Africa on. There was oh man, Congo was Tanzania. There was tons of stations from Africa coming in. And then as time would go, they would actually shut down for the night as we would get close to 23 to 0 hours UT. Stations would shut down for the night. And then we would start having the stations from Central South America, which there was tons of also. I mean, you could hear Costa Rica, Guatemala, Venezuela, Brazil, Haiti. You would hear Colombia. You would hear tons of station. If you guys remember, on the 5 megahertz range below, on the bottom 5, we're around where WTWW is today. There was a very strong station from Colombia. It was called Caracol, Colombia. That one was coming in really strong. Reminds me of Ecos del Torbes, 4980 on Venezuela. That was a super powerful one coming from Venezuela. There's so many stations. Radio Reloj, which was 4832, kind of an odd frequency. I got a QSL card from a lot of those here. Keegan has Radio Exterior de España in English, S9 Plus. So, what else do we have? Rifleman 336 and 8 UCN from Southwest Ohio. Nice to have you on board. Joe Samblan US. Nice to have you here from Brazil, my friend. Waltzing Matilda. Yep, absolutely. Australia. Yes, Hubbard Radio International does play that tune, iComic 40. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What else do we have? Dave Todd 5717 USB is the HF search and rescue for Trenton. That's also something to listen to. Cold War Radio Tirana interval signal was intense. Absolutely, it was very intense. One of the stations I listened to a lot was Radio RSA. Radio RSA in South Africa. That was a regular one every evening. Radio RSA. Hey, Hunter Carver, nice to have you here. Mike Hill has Solomon Islands playing Sign of the Gypsy Queen, my Canadian band, April Wine. Wow. Crazy. Don't forget, you guys, you got to buy an MLA30. It sucks all the radio waves from the air. That was a really nice one. Mike Hill, Uganda. Yep, Uganda. Oh man, there were so many things to listen to. Togo 5047 was Togo's frequency. Remember that. 189. Do all these stations speak English? A lot of them were very local. So, like in Africa, there was a subset of some of the African stations that had some English, like Voice of Nigeria. But a lot of them were very local. So there's some French, vernacular, and Arabic. Sometimes there weren't any local languages. The stations in South America were all pretty much all Spanish, except Brazil, which Portuguese. I remember listening to Voice RFO Guyana, French Guyana, in French. Oh man. Chuck Yunkin, nice to have you here. There's a lot of stuff. Hey, 2E0UKH, nice to have you here. Chris in England. 5040 Radio Havana, Cuba, S9 Plus, Keegan. Mad Radio DX, it reminds me as well as Radio New Zealand International. Yeah, with their Kiwi. Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Matt says, I had Voice of Indonesia a few times this week at 3325 at sunrise. Wow, that is nice. 3588-ish. You must be listening to, I don't know, 3588. Could be all sorts of interval. Let me check it out here. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is, honestly. I'm not sure what that is exactly, honestly. It was crazy. Yeah, I often do that, Dave, also. The other day, I left it. I left MMSSTV on 14230. Came back and had like several pictures. That's kind of fun. So, hey, guys. Been on for 3 hours and 25 minutes-ish. Hope you enjoyed today's show. A little look back in nostalgia at old times. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, we have 2 shows a week, which is Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 0 UTC. Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 20 UTC. And like I said, I don't ask for donations anymore. You can still leave some if you want, but it's not required anymore. I decided to stop asking and stop begging. And I want to thank everybody for being great fans, for being here, for loving what I do. It's a great pleasure to be here twice a week. And it's always fun to do these shows. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And now it's time to go get some pizza because I'm hungry. And I'm getting pizza tonight. I want to say thank you, everybody, for being great fans, for being here. Love you all. There's the Facebook page. Official SWL channel. Official SWL channel. Okay? And thank you so much for being great fans, as always. And we'll see some of you on the Facebook group. And always fun to be here. Usually, Rifleman 336 take only pepperoni and cheese. Hey, Brian Penny, take care, and we'll wish the best to Mr. Paul. Thanks for the gift for Paul. Seems to be enjoying it. As I was going to get my second drink, he was actually sleeping in it again tonight. So I think he likes it. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. And please be careful with whatever happens. And don't go crazy. Don't go overboard. Buy radios. Don't buy toilet paper. Bye, everyone. Stay safe now. Love you all.